Okay, looks like it's run. Looks like it's recording. Welcome. I set up a match in Arena lcZero with the latest net ID145 versus Ethereal. Time control 30 minutes for the game with a 10-second increment. So we're gonna see. It's just gonna be two games, just to see how they matched up. Because in the TCEC, Ethereal beat lcZero, but lcZero is running a older net. I believe it's running an older net, 125, I think. So I'm just curious right now how well Ethereal would do with a different net, a later net, which is training right now. I'm not even sure if this net's completely trained. I think it's trained and they started another net, but it's not posted yet. So this match should take in the neighborhood of an hour, maybe a little longer, at the most. Or maybe 2 hours. Half hour each, yeah. Maybe around 2 hours. So let's see what happens. Very curious about what happens in this match. The openings are from an opening book, H. Schnapp. You see it on the top bar, the top title bar of the app. H. Schnapp 440 Suite 15. There's 440 games in the, maybe 441 in the suite, and I'm just running through them sequentially. The first two. It's actually just going to play the first opening in the book for both colors, I believe, for this first test. This is really just a test match to see if I could set lcZero up. I was pretty sure Ethereal would work, but lcZero, I couldn't get it to run in cutechess, although I tried a few times. I'm not sure what's going on with that. What I configured wrong, I don't know. Not all that clear on how to add a command line to the cutechess GUI. I could do it with the cutechess-cli, no problem. But then there's nothing to look at in a video. So right now we see this matchup, and it's kind of interesting. I wish I would have used a faster time control, but this is what they're using on TCEC right at the moment, I think. And so I thought it would be interesting to see what they can do on the same time control. Actually, right now I'm seriously impressed with how well lcZero is doing, considering the project's only a couple of months old. The net that it uses is well, there's been quite a few increments, but you know, it's been trained on millions of games, but it's still relatively new, and I would say it's probably not completely trained, and it's probably only going to improve. Well, lcZero is based on the Google net. which claimed to beat Stockfish, which I believe is untrue. Really, it beat a crippled back level version of Stockfish. So, you know, they can only, like, with some caveats, claim that they beat Stockfish. So this is probably boring if you're not into chess, but if you're into programming and artificial intelligence, this has a more interesting aspect to it. Because up until now, with the new GPUs and deep learning and so on, you could not train a net to play chess. You could train a net, but they were pretty much unsuccessful until they started using this Monte Carlo tree search, which I'm beginning to investigate and learn more about myself. I'm kind of interested in how it works. Might even use it in my own chess program, which would be really cool. Especially if I only need to train with millions of games to get better results than I already have. So I'm gonna shut up and let this thing cook for a while. I'm going to rearrange this a little bit so you can see the PV a little better. Especially the A0 PV, but we don't want to just want to see a little bit more about the lcZero. I say A0. I just want to see a little bit more of this PV. Oh, it starts showing it at 14. That's probably the safe search time. Even though it's not searching that fast, amazingly. I mean, these numbers are, you know, pathetic compared to a conventional depth search engine like Ethereal, which, look at it's going 30, 25, 30 plies deep. It's amazing. Oh well, I'm going to shut up again and we'll watch. Now here we have a disagreement between the engines. Ethereal thinks that black is winning with negative score, favors black, and lcZero thinks that it's winning by around 3/4 of a pawn. Ethereal thinks it's winning by half a pawn. So we have a discrepancy there. We'll see. I suspect, in looking at the position, you can't really tell. I suspect they're both, maybe both of them are even wrong on this. But the one that wins will apparently have a better eval for the game. So let's see how it plays out. Actually, I just realized I have this whole thing mixed up. I think it's because it's black. This box is black and this box is white, but actually, Ethereal's playing white. This is really stupid, but Ethereal's playing white, and lcZero's playing black, and so lcZero thinks that white is winning by 2/10 of a pawn, and Ethereal thinks that black is winning by 0.36 of a pawn, 0.19 now, and so each engine thinks the other is winning. And if you look at black, black's position up until a few minutes ago, I was thinking white was looking better with the space and everything. But it's interesting because black was threatening this knight, and it was properly defended with the A3 move. And now black is pushing down the center, busting things open. Maybe white's king is a little bit more exposed. It's looking like black is not that bad, so maybe his score should be getting closer to zero. lcZero score should be getting closer to zero, maybe going more negative, and actually it did. It went more negative, and white's score should be going near zero, maybe going a little negative, because black has some threats against the king. That could open up here with this pawn exchanges and so on going on in the center. So, I mean, I haven't really followed out all these PVs, but it's very interesting. I mean, it's at least nearly equal, I would say. They're at least nearly equal, and neither side has the advantage of a pawn, even so. It's very impressive that lcZero is doing this well against a fairly well developed classical engine. So there goes the queens. Well, let's watch some more. Okay, so it looks like, yeah, it looks like they're going to exchange pawns here, and lcZero's pawn on e3, his passed pawn on e3 is going to get gobbled up. I don't know why he didn't move the bishop down to f5 and defend it. That's what I would have done. But who knows why it's deciding when it decides. I have to play back the movie to see what the PV was and go over it. Or look in the PGN file if it's in there. The PGN file for the match. But you'll be able to look at the, if you're watching the movie, you'll be able to look at the PV in the movie. So maybe now he's going to move the bishop down to f5 to because the knight's pinned with this rook being undefended on e3. Oh, he's ganging up on it for sure. So we got a showdown going on here, and you know he can't blockade the pawn from advancing. So this is looking really bad for white, in my opinion, even though the scores look pretty even. He's got the little check there, though. He's got that check on f6, and that probably is why it's equal. He took care of that threat. So lcZero is very impressive considering the number of plies that it's searching and the length of time its nets have been trained. It's playing very impressive to me. I'm very impressed, and actually this is the first time I've watched it play, other than I have looked at some of the nets that I have volunteered. Because I have the training running on my GPU. Which all you have to do is download the client. There's a program. When you download, you get a program called the client. You can get a GPU client or a CPU client. When you download the client and you kick that off, the first time you run it, you have to create a login ID and a password, which you can just make whatever you want, and it will calibrate your GPU. If you have a GPU, you'd run the GPU. If you don't have a GPU, you could run the CPU, which is it's not going to contribute as much. But it'll calibrate for your GPU, and then it will run games, and I don't really know all the details, but I do know that it runs games on your GPU with a net, and sends the results back to the server, and the training is actually done on the server based on the results, and based on the resulting games that you send back. And so, as you can see, whatever's going on in that process seems to be working, because this net trained engine is doing pretty well in this game. It's doing fairly well. Against a fairly strong engine too. Ethereal, it's not the strongest engine in the world, but it's not a weak one either, by any means. And so we have like a standoff in the center with all the pieces. The pawns are equal on both sides of the board, with one isolated pawn for black in the center, which can be weak. I mean, it has to be defended. Can't be defended by any other pawns, so therefore it's weak. Other than that, everything else looks equal, material-wise. Bishop and knight, 2 rooks for each side. White does have a little more space on the king side for his pawns, but they're blocked. They're blockaded. They're not going anywhere. And so it's pretty much a standoff. I can easily picture the rooks coming off fairly soon, especially since they're facing off right now on the E file. And you can see in the PV RX, so I think they're coming off pretty quick. Now, black does have a lot of pawns on the light squares, and white has the the light squared bishop, and so that situation could be bad for black, but that's if the bishops stay on, which they may not, because they're actually up for exchange right now too. So, in fact, I see a B5, BF5XD3 in the PV for both engines, and so they're probably coming off, and we'll end up with a knight and pawn endgame. So I wouldn't be extremely surprised if this game ended in a draw. I don't really know how strong lcZero is in the end game, and so one thing I would say is I don't see any reason why lcZero would have a negative 0.99 score. Oh, I see now, because when he takes the rook, the bishop takes the pawn and he's up a pawn. So that's impressive. Oh, he took with the knight, so that's not happening. And so now, maybe that's the reason for the score, but that's way off. So, and after this bishop is captured, they both have an isolated pawn blocking each other in the center, and I don't know. It's hard for me to predict what could happen. Everything seems to be balanced. Everything is balanced with white having a little more space. Neither king is blocked from having an approach to get over on the other side of the board, other than maybe being blocked by the opponent's king and knight. But they're not blocked by strictly pawns. So I guess I would call this an open pawn formation from that point of view. The king can march across to the other side. Like, for example, white's king can march all the way over and take the pawn on a6. Well, looking at it from the other way, black's king couldn't probably. Well, I guess he has a path via a5 to get down in to white's position, but that could be easily stopped by white. So I would say right now I would favor white in this position if I had to choose which side I'd want to play for this endgame. Now when black gets his knight to f5, though, it's threatening the pawn at a4, so that pawn is weak and has to be defended. And so this could end up being a draw, actually. Maybe ng3 and then the knights come off. What's he got? It's ng7. He's pushing his pawns. Oh, he can't take the pawn because then his knight hangs. So that's how he solved that. h4, h5. So they both think they're winning by almost a pawn. They both think they're winning. That, I don't think I would have played that, because now the pawn on g5 is weak. If if white was able to sack on g6, the h6 pawn would be very strong. But I don't know. I mean, I don't see how he defends his pawn on g5. So looks like that's going to end up being an exchange. Ethereal is going 30 moves into the depth into the end game, and so it may be that extra depth is going to decide this thing. So he decided not to even try to defend the E pawn or D pawn and took the G pawn. So white's king stands better in the center than black's king. He's not even taking the pawn. He's going after the A pawn apparently. So that's an interesting turn of events. He thinks he's winning by plus 1.2, and it's probably because of the greater depth. I would trust that. I would trust that score over the net. So it's getting pretty interesting right now. I don't know how strong lcZero is on the end game. Still believes he's winning though. This got h3, f2, g4, and coming back around at the h pawn. So that pawn's going to fall too. There's no saving it. So it's going to be the king side versus the queen side. Who gets there first? That's what it's coming down to. And Ethereal believes he's winning. Got an f1 equal queen down here in this PV. So he's got to get his pawn back past g3 alive. Oh, okay, I see now. The threat is an exchange of knights, and that pawn will be passed, and the king can't catch it. Very nice, very nice. And he believes he's winning. So now the knight blockades the pawn, and
black can't make any progress with it, but there's a pawn hanging on d3, b2, so let's see how it plays out. And black thinks he's winning big time, minus 2.48. It's easy to see how white can pick off the h6 pawn with his king. White will probably advance the b pawn to defend it. It's all b2, b4 is the pb. And so I don't see how black can defend that b5 pawn. So now black's king is actually moving to the center. It's actually improving its black's position over white's as far as the kings are concerned. But white will be able to advance his a pawn, and the knight will have to do some dancing to get down there. Not even sure if it can stop it. So we're being treated to lcZero's endgame strength right now. How strong is it really? Because it thinks it's winning the game. And d3, e5 check. So I get the impression that black right now is ready to launch his d pawn, and what happens, between the d pawn and the g pawn, black's knight is overworked to block all that, and so his king's gonna have to pitch in. kc5, yeah, so the king's got to come over. One thing I haven't mentioned much about is the time, and lcZero has used less time. He's got 3 extra minutes. If time becomes a factor later on, that could do it. I mean, this game is way more interesting than I ever expected. I mean, the quality of the moves. I mean, I don't know that they're 3,000 level moves, but they're not weak moves. I mean, you could say it plays itself, but we know that the Leela Zero doesn't have the traditional human tune evaluation function. It's all learned from experience like a human would. It's very impressive. Although humans don't sit down and remember a probability of this move being better than that move. That's what Leela is doing. In a sense, though, it's probably more like a complicated lookup table. The neural net is, in my opinion. Okay, I don't think White can seriously take that knight. I would have to look at these PVs, but I I don't think that White can stop both of those black pawns. If apparently it was a bad problem for black, and now White is winning big time on the PV, as well as black. Come to think of it, and so this could be a train wreck for lcZero if his eval is weak, because Ethereal's got a huge plus. We went from black being up a pawn to white being up a pawn. So I don't understand why he started going over after the H pawn, but the situation is it takes time for white to drive that knight out of there. And so it takes time for black's king to take the h6 pawn and move up to support a move to g3. So I can't really count it all out. That's why I rely on these chess engines to figure all this stuff out. b4, b5. So now we've got three. That knight's got three moves to survive, and then so let's count 1, 2, 3. The knight's gone. 1, 2, 3, and the pawn moves. The pawn's going to be supported on its move after 1. Yeah, the pawn moves on the. Let's see, 1, 2. When the knight falls, the pawn advances to g3, and the knight has to take it, and that leaves white one, two tempo ahead and winning big time. So I can see the knight retreating to b6 because that's the only sane thing. That's the only sane defense. d6 and maybe c8. But Ethereal doesn't see it that way. He's adamant that he's going to win this game with a +8, 9 though. +10 even. He's going to chase Black's king and win the game. Now, an interesting thing is if it comes down to promotions, and it's the rook pawns, the white pawn at a3 promotes on a8, and the black pawn on h7 promotes on h1, which are on the same diagonal, which means the first one that gets there and queens can capture the other. And so that's an interesting aspect to this. It could become an issue in this endgame. Ethereal's already calculated this out 26 moves and believes that he's got this. Now, I think for Ethereal we could consider it calculation, and for lcZero maybe it's more like belief that he's winning at a -4. He believes that he's winning. He doesn't know, but he believes he is. So I don't know, I mean, it's not looking good for lcZero right now. So I'm expecting Ethereal to win this. He's got to retreat his knight to a8, but yet he thinks he's winning. If he sacks his knight on b6, then I think it's pretty much over. It's two tempo ahead, and I don't think that lcZero's had enough training to know that he can't win this. And he's still clinging to a -5. See, he's got the b7, b8 queen. King to f4, b8, b8, xc7 check. No, he's changed that. So he sacks the knight. He doesn't even have the time advantage he had before. he's doing the same thing in reverse. Wow. Holy cow. He's got mate in 12. See, the thing is, if he takes the knight, he can't queen on g1 because the queen on b8 will just check on g8 and bye-bye, new queen. So if he moves the king, instead of promoting, then the initiative is in white's favor, and he can just check him and check him and check him until he mates him. And even the table base shows white winning in 10. If you're looking in the middle here, point to it. TV white wins in 10 moves. So it was pretty close. So it came down to one tempo. And apparently lcZero doesn't know about tempo like that in the end game. I don't know how you would train it not to learn that, but I don't understand how he can have a -6, -5 score, -6 score when he's in a lost position. So that's a little bit off. But you know what? For 2 months of training, you couldn't have you couldn't learn that fast. I mean, as a human being, you couldn't learn the game to this level in just a couple of months. Starting, say you were 4 or 5 years old and you're just starting to learn the game for the first time. You couldn't learn the game this fast. It's truly amazing. I mean, even when I was a beginner, and I'm somewhat of a beginner, I would think that I could queen this pawn, and so, I know it's impossible. Any master would tell you it's impossible, but an expert or even an A-class player, but a beginner at chess would think they could queen this pawn, and it's just not happening. So he leads the pawn in. That's the right idea, actually, I think. But as soon as you move in front of the pawn like that, the enemy king can gain on you. So I don't know. Even that moving in front, I think it's bad. If he's trying to create a stalemate situation, he could be trying to do that, but it's not happening. I mean, as soon as white's king gets over there, it's amazing he's not even moving his queen because I guess he doesn't need to yet. But as soon as white's king gets over there, it's history. I mean, he's going to drive his king in front of the pawn again and then approach with the king. That's what I would do. So he's not even doing that. I'm not sure why Ethereal's playing the way he is. I mean, the idea is to not let him advance that pawn. It says white wins in 3. So, I see. See, he forces him to move his king in front of the pawn. Then he advances with his king. And so the game was called, adjudicated. Very cool. So now we're on to the second game of the match. It's just going to be a 2-game match. same opening, colors reversed. So they don't castle right off they're attacking on the king's side. That's amazing. They both like the opponent's position better again. Now, it would have been less confusing for me if I would have set it up so lcZero was on the bottom, but I set it up so Ethereal's on the bottom every time. So he's capturing toward the center with h2xg3. So I'm just going to shut up and let this go. So Ethereal's up a pawn. His score reflects that. Well, actually, he thinks white is winning. I'm a bit confused, but unless Ethereal is displaying a side to move oriented score and not a white oriented score. But I don't really know what that engine displays. That could be the case. I suspect lcZero is displaying a white oriented score and it thinks that black is winning. That would explain a lot right there. See, what I'm looking at is this plus 1.31. If that's a side to move oriented score rather than a white oriented score, then black thinks he's winning by 1.35 centipoints, or 135. I guess it would be centipoint. So and on the other hand, if lcZero is displaying a white oriented score, he thinks that black is winning because the score is negative. I'm not really familiar with Ethereal because I've never run it before, and so I just downloaded it tonight, and actually I'm not familiar with either one of these engines. This is the first time I've ever run either one of these engines, and so it's all new to me too. So now the queens are gone. So now we're fairly deeply into the middle game, and black has a bit of an advantage with the bishop pair and an extra pawn, and so I would say right now that black stands better. I wonder if I can flip the board. I don't see any way to do it. It'd be kind of interesting to flip the board right now. Doesn't like the multi-PV choice. Yeah, I don't see any way to flip the board. That would be really cool. Because I'd like to see. I'd like to see lcZero on the bottom of this. Variation board. Do I dare to click that right now? I've never tried it before. I don't think so. So I think Ethereal is winning this game too. That's my gut feeling. Of course, it could always turn into a draw. I've seen some pretty amazing draws between chess engines, and we'll just have to wait and see. Yeah, I think Black really need to make that move in order to make progress on the queen side. He's got to launch those pawns. Um, Basically, we got a situation here where the queens are on opposite sides. They're castled on opposite sides, and so the general the general rule here is, it's not really a rule but a strategy, is to attack on the king. Who gets there first wins. And that's what we gotta watch. That's what we gotta watch. And because Black has an extra pawn, he's got more weight to throw at the attack. I think. Like right now, he could put his rook at b8, say a8, b8, and toss his pawn out to b5, with the idea of getting a pawn on b4, knocking the knight out of there, and getting your somehow getting a breakthrough in and around the enemy king, pin down that c pawn with a rook, and then get your b pawn moving down to pry open the position somehow. That would be the general plan, I think, for a human. Now plus we also have that G7 bishop supporting, and at some point the light squared bishop on D7 could get into it, although that's a bad bishop. That's a very bad bishop, and it needs to be in front of the pawn chain instead of behind the pawn chain. It would be better right now, if it was, say, able to sit on F5 or something, in some long range. If you could teleport it somewhere, I'm not saying that could do it right now because there's a pawn on G4, but the general idea would be to have that pawn in front of the pawn chain on a square like F5, rather than down, tied up, blocked in by its own pawns down here on D7. And the way these chess engines work, they, at least a traditional chess engine, they try all the moves. They'll have the bishop on that square even when it can be captured. I mean, they try everything. So unless it gets pruned off of their search somehow. So it's crazy, but see, now the pawn move to A5, that kind of wrecks the idea of advancing the B pawn and prying open the C file. Somehow that kind of wrecks that whole idea, and so that was actually a really nice move. So I gotta check on my microwave. So Leela transferred the knight to the center, moving closer toward the black king. That's an interesting idea. Everything seems to be well defended for both sides, really, except for that A pawn that Ethereal just went after. So I would expect lcZero to defend that, but he's got G4, G5 here. I don't see how that defends it. B8 XA5. And that kicks the rook out of that spot, that nice spot, defensive spot that it's in. Or he has to advance that pawn, and now I can see the B pawn coming up and prying it open. So we're back to the original plan. It's pretty cool. So I guess that wasn't that far off. See over here we got B7, B5, and B5, B4. Here we got C2, C3. So yeah, I mean, it's not going to be long before the queen side comes crashing open on white's side. I can picture this whole thing crashing open with some the weight of the black pieces coming down. But on the reverse side, it's hard for me to picture long range something like that happening. I mean, you'd have to like double your rooks against the h7. That's what I'd be looking to do. Get this bishop and pawn out of the way, bring these rooks over, and form an attack down this way. Now I can see the black king escaping though. Down, it's not blocked in. So he got his bishop out of the way and these pawns are ready to roll. B7, B5, B5, B4. It's in there. So now why is he putting his bishop right back? That's kind of stupid, isn't it? He puts his bishop on C7 and then back to A4 again. I mean, maybe that's just, oh, it's a different bishop. I get it. It's a different bishop. This one comes back, this one goes up. Maybe he wants to get his bishop to B3. I don't see that in the cards here. Look at that, he's got NG4E5 in his line, and that's what lcZero is looking at. So Ethereal's no slouch here. He's doing a really good job. So I would have been reluctant to make that trade because the dark squared bishop is black's good bishop. Although that knight being in the center like that is pretty strong. So now he's got a pawn. Now he's attacking with the A pawn rather than trying to mess around with the C pawn by advancing the B pawn. He's just pushing the A pawn down, and that looks pretty good. And he's got a plus 2.78. He's up 2 pawns. And lcZero has a negative 1.5, so he thinks black is winning as well. I should mention again that the lcZero net is ID145, and I don't even know how well that's tested. I mean, I don't want you to think that lcZero's a weak engine. It's doing really well considered it's at an early stage in its development. It's slightly weaker than Ethereal, it looks like. It's really hard to put an elo on that. A couple of games don't mean that much. It could be that this opening favors one side over the other, although the way things are going here, I guess you couldn't really make that claim. Ethereal really likes this position. If you just tuned in, the +3 score for Ethereal, I believe, indicates it's plus for the side to move and not a white-oriented score. whereas the lcZero score looks like it's a white-oriented score, minus 1.3, and that means that Ethereal thinks black is winning, and black is up 2 pawns. So he throws in a check. He's got to move his king to A1. The only thing in Leela's favor, or lcZero's favor right now, is the fact that black has a bad bishop. It's just plain bad. Now, he could probably move his bishop to A4 and then C2 and then eventually to B1 and really hem in that king, but you know, that's not really gonna, put a check on the king. It's blocked in, but there's no way to checkmate it. He's got to get a rook to the first rank. I know it's confusing because the A1 to H1 rank is on top. I tried to figure out how to flip it, but I don't know how to flip this board. Let's try it over here. No. What about along this bar? Maybe this. There we go. What an idiot I am. Yeah, so he's got to get his rook on C1 to the first rank, or defend the pawn with the bishop somehow, and then either rook could come down to the first rank. That's what, in this position, that's what black has to do. If the pawn on A2 falls for some reason, then that all changes, but as it stands right now, that's what has to happen. So now white has done us the favor of opening the H file, so now we can get our rook down to the first rank via the H file, but that's more than likely going to cause an exchange rather than progress with the rooks. Now, having this 2-pawn advantage, though, black can afford to exchange pawn for pawn and end up with a pawn somewhere besides that A2 pawn, somewhere else. Where that would be, I don't know, but it could be any other file, but if it's somewhere besides an area that white's blocking, it could tip the game. So that's another way to win this. Without mating, we could promote a queen somewhere on the king's side. So I don't see any immediate checkmate. Just going to be a trench warfare battle, and if we exchange everything off right now evenly, as far as the pieces are concerned, black would probably still be a pawn up, because that that a pawn would fall without a piece defending it. So it would still be a 5-4 advantage. Now I can see how with the advancing the F pawn and then the E pawn, black could get his bishop back in the game just by opening up lines. So that's an interesting thing. I can see possible rooks coming off on the H file. Bishop A4. See, now if he takes the pawn with his king now, when the bishop goes to C2, I think it's a mate in a couple moves, mate in a few moves, because the bishop would go to A6, rook takes, the rook goes to A4, rook takes, and then it's mate. So he's not gonna take the bishop with his rook probably. So, and he's not going to take the pawn. So the other thing is the bishop can't get to C2 because of the bishop on D3, obviously. But if he fell into the trap and took the pawn on A2, that would be devastating. So now he can't move that F pawn because he's got two pieces on the G pawn. He would have to retreat the bishop back to E8. But you know, an interesting thing is now that rook on the C file can go to the H file uncontested. And if it gets to H2, it could support a bishop on C2. So that's all interesting developments. Not to mention, it'd be nice to have a rook in behind the enemy lines where you can attack the pawns from behind. So I would have in my PV C8, rook C8 to H8. And he has it.
He has that right here.
So I'm not that far off in my estimations.
So he didn't do that. He decided to double up. I don't see any advantage to double up like that, but unless he wants to exchange off the White's rook on the B4 somehow. It takes a couple of moves to arrange that, but well, I'm kind of disappointed that
lcZero is down 2 pawns, and basically Ethereal has the initiative, but on the other hand, it's impressive that lcZero is playing this well at all, considering it's only been in training for a couple of months. I'm not sure when they started training in that, but a couple of months. That's very impressive. I mean, I don't know anybody, any human, that learned this game would play at this level in just a couple of months. Well, I'm going to shut up and let you enjoy the game. Well, that was, I'm not really sure if that was a good sack or not. That was impressive. I didn't even look at that move. Apparently, Ethereal did look at that move, and he thinks he's winning by +5. Okay, now I see the rook exchange on h1, and then the bishop moving to b1, and then the rook is free to come down. But I don't see how he mates, given all that. White has that nasty e pawn, but he still believes he's losing. So we'll just let it play out. A beautiful line by Ethereal. Definitely a winning position. There's no way to stop the queen. Promotion on a1. Okay, well that's it. That was a surprising ending. Surprising and swift. That was very interesting. Very interesting. They both had about 10 minutes left, so that was like a quick. I mean, it ended way faster than I expected. I thought there was going to be a lot more pawn play and rook exchanges and whatnot. That was really cool. So apparently Leela self-destructed when it moved this b pawn up. That was a really bad move. Alright, well there you have it. That was my fun thing to do for the night. Thank you for watching.